feel like I should do this when that happens at the end of the song. Well, happy CultureCast Day, everybody. I'm super excited to welcome and say hello to my friend Steven Feldman, the president of HABRI, the Human Animal Bond Research Institute. Welcome, Steven. How are you?
Thanks so much for having me. I'm doing great.
Now, where are you right now? Where are you sitting as we speak?
Well, I'm in McLean, Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C. on a kind of a cloudy day, but it's okay. Everything's good because of our pets.
Right. I agree. And you're bringing some sunshine because we're talking about love and joy. That is a feeling that I get when we talk about pets. So I'm super excited to have you. Thank you so much, everyone. I had the chance to meet Steven almost a year ago. It's coming up on our friend anniversary, like for a year, when Steven actually was a speaker at our very first Best Pet Workplaces Summit, which was just down the street here in Playa del Rey. And then we reunited last month along with your BFF, Martha Stewart, right, in New York, where Steven was just such the rock star to share awesome research and data from HABRI. So I'm excited that we can bring that in a conversation around how do you create cultures and communities where everyone can thrive. That's really what the purpose is of CultureCast. I had the fortunate opportunity to meet some cool people like you, leaders across different industries who have a thing or two in terms of experience and to say around how do you cultivate environments where people can thrive. So thank you. And I also want to thank you too. I do this every time with this song. Julius Wilder, who wrote and produced the song, who was a friend and like family in Nashville. And I think he's just captured the energy of everyone that I've had the chance to meet with and have a conversation with. So thank you, Julius. And on back to you, Steven. Before we jump in to HABRI, I want to understand, I'm sure people are really curious, how does one become the president of the Human Animal Bond Research Institute? But before you get into like your professional career, I want to know like, who is young Steven? And how did you point towards a path of, I'll say, politics and animals? And those could be the same thing. Anyway, I'd love to hear about that.
Well, sure. Well, my first real job was as a staffer in the United States Senate. So hopefully people don't tune out immediately when they hear that. But that was a great training ground in politics. I left there and went into public relations. I worked for a company called Powell Tate. Jody Powell was President Carter's press secretary, and Sheila Tate was Nancy Reagan's press secretary. And we worked for all manner of clients. And I really learned, I think, the art of communications there.
Mm-hmm.
I had a former client who recruited me from there, and I became the head of external affairs at the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. And that began my adventure in the world of animals. And it was great. My children were young. They were a perfect zoo-going age, and so they got to have all kinds of special experiences. And I got to learn all about wildlife conservation and really came to understand something, which is that people who love and care for animals are happy people. And then this weird job description crossed my desk one day. It was the Human Animal Bond Research Initiative. It wasn't even Institute at the time. It was brand new. I think Institute would have been kind of grand when they were just starting out. The American Pet Products Association, Zoetis, the largest animal health company, and Petco had decided that, there was this research going on where people were actually showing through science that pets were beneficial to us. And they thought, well, let's create an organization and fund some research. And they did that for a little while with kind of as volunteers. And then they realized, okay, if we want this to be something, we should hire somebody. So I was employee number one at the Human Animal Bond Research Initiative. And then once we really started rolling, we changed it to Institute without having to change our acronym. But
Nice.
that's my strange path to HABRI.
Okay, well, I want to just go further back. I mean, I know that you were a staffer at the very beginning. Were you like in drama or were you, and I think, were you an English major? I'm just trying to think about what was that path you took, you know, what was that point in your life that said, I want to go towards a career, I'll just say in communications, with, I'd say politics initially.
Well, I was not in drama. I was, believe it or not, and you've met me in person, even though I'm much
Yeah.
taller on camera. I was a football player in high school, believe it or not. And
Right on.
um, I always loved history and I loved political science, and that's what I studied in
Got it.
college. Um, I spent a lot of time studying the Soviet Union, and only to have it collapse right after I got my degree. So I had to do something.
Wow. Well, I think it's a very creative pathway to get to HABRI. And I love that the chance to learn navigating skills, I'll just say that, having worked on the Hill or with people on the Hill is interesting. And then dipping into the animal life with the association, really, for zoos and aquariums and being the head of external affairs. Perfect that this job posting for that, which was then the initiative and not the institute, kind of led you here. So I want to dive into this research, right? So there's
Sure.
awesome research around the human animal bond. I know it's a topic that I'm passionate about for me personally and professionally. Personally, because I'm a fur mom, right? I've got two cats who are brothers, and then they have a sister who you've met. Her name's Akira, a Siberian Husky who travels with us all the time. And just the feeling that I have for myself, the sense of calm and being centered and feeling loved and being capable of loving, the pets automatically do that for me. But then to put science behind it is fascinating. So I'd love for you to kind of dive into what was that core initiative that I think HABRI started with, and what has the research grown to, and what are the key things that with people learning about thriving cultures should they know about the human animal bond?
Well, there are researchers all over the world studying this. We fund many of their projects. We actually have a competitive request for research proposals every year, and we get proposals from all over the world, and we fund the best ones. I think it's important to take a step back and say that the human animal bond, the AVMA defines it as a mutually beneficial and dynamic relationship between people and animals. So of course, we're really important for taking care of them,
Yeah,
making sure they're healthy, but they're also taking care of our health. And the AVMA goes on to say that there are mental, physical, and social benefits for having animals in our lives. So, of course, we study that. So we are looking at there are a number of studies where we're looking just at mental health. We're also
hmm,
looking at physical health, like the gut microbiome and heart health. And then we're also looking at the benefits of pets um, for people in different situations, like veterans with post-traumatic stress
hmm.
or um, children on the autism spectrum. We can find so many benefits for everyone, but in particular, some of these special populations, including, by the way, people who are older and living alone, who can really achieve healthy aging through pet ownership.
I love that. And I want to dive into, since we're in the middle of May is Mental Health Month, Mental Health Awareness Month,
Yes.
I'd love to hear more data around the mental health benefits of that, I think, mutually beneficial relationship that, humans have with their pets. I'd love for you to dive into that.
Sure. Well, first of all, in all the surveys we've done, I think in our most recent survey, 87% of people said that their pets had enhanced their mental health. So people universally feel this. And then the studies are showing it. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Just a few months ago, a study at the University of Georgia that we funded was published. And foster cats were placed with older people living alone. And they were given a little help. They were given a little veterinary care and some food and some litter to get them started. And then their loneliness scores and their mental health were measured over
Wow.
time. And so those older people living alone were less lonely. They had better mental health. And at the end of the study, 97% of them adopted the cats.
That's
So
amazing.
that's a good example of the kind of thing we can measure. So there's good measurement of pets reducing stress. There even have been studies to show reductions in blood pressure.
I believe
And
that.
then, and then, um, we can go further and show reductions in anxiety and in some cases depression and obviously loneliness is an epidemic in our society,
Yeah.
and pets can really help with loneliness in a couple of ways. They can provide direct companionship for us when we're by ourselves, but they also help connect us to other people. Neighborhoods with more pets are actually more closer knit. You're more likely to meet people in your neighborhood. I'm sure there are people out there who just know you as Akira's mom.
Yeah.
Um, so, um,
Well, it's funny too. My husband takes Akira to the dog park pretty much every day when we're in Nashville, and we'll actually remember all the dogs' names, right? The ones that Akira plays with. But then we'll be like, okay, what is that, puppy's parents' names? But it's like, but they'll come back and tell me, oh, we ran into Scout or Zeus or whoever, right? All of Akira's friends. So I think that's really funny. You're right. They'll just know you as, oh, you're Akira's mom, right? So anyway, didn't mean to interrupt you, but
Oh, no, no, it's funny because this one particular study looked at a number of different communities, including Nashville, and found that neighborhoods with more pets were more closer knit. So that was one of the cities in the study.
really,
Yeah,
who knew? I
yeah.
believe that. You and I were talking about this in the behind the scenes in the green room before we jumped into the studio. I notice, we travel with Akira, we've moved around with Akira in different parts of the United States. And I notice a big difference. And maybe it's because of the closeness too of how people live. When we were living in Brooklyn, I just feel like that's such a dog friendly city. Everyone almost has a pet. And because we have smaller spaces, we're always going to be outside. But I also find that you're right. When you're part of a community with lots of pets, and it felt that way more dense, I think, in Brooklyn, for example, than like moving back to Southern California and living it in Newport Beach and everything's more spread apart. Um, I agree with you. I think anecdotally, right? People just feel friendlier, that they
Well,
want to
a
connect.
lot of times pets will organically um, help us develop a more close knit culture. But we can also be intentional about that. We can recognize that there's science behind this and actually intentionally build cultures and communities um, around pets. So whether that's where we live, work, or play, we can rely on this research and what we know about how pets bring us together and actually create a more pet-friendly society and therefore create a more close-knit society.
That's right. Well, I want to dive into, since you've mentioned this, and I think people are very familiar with pets at home, pets in the community, but then a pet conscious, pet forward, pet friendly workplace. I'd love to dive into that because I think when I first met you, and I met you because I've had the fortunate opportunity to now support and partner with Clint Missamore and Joe Petrillo of Wolf World. It's like, how do we take this idea of creating connection and community and then bringing that into company culture? And so I'd love for you to talk about creating these close knit connections and cultures inside the workplace. Like, tell me about what research that your team has seen that would relate to creating environments where people can thrive inside the workplace.
Sure. Well, I think it's important to make sure we understand what we're talking about when we talk about
Yeah.
pet consciousness or pet inclusivity. I always like to say that, and most people, if you think about this, this has always been true. More people have pets than kids, but most companies would say, of course, we're family friendly.
Hmm.
And what does family friendly mean? It means you're thinking not only about your employees, but their entire families. That's why you offer health insurance and offer time off for people to be with their families or when they have someone in their family who has a health challenge. So, all of these things make you a family friendly company. More of your employees have pets. How do you become a pet conscious company? It doesn't mean having pets in the office all the time. Just no more than being family friendly means bringing your kids to the office all
Right.
the time. Um, Although you can bring pets to the office safely, and it has a wonderful effect on company culture, but it's really thinking holistically um, about every member of the family, including the four-legged members of the family. So what does that mean? It means you could offer pet health insurance. It means you could offer some flexibility so people can take their pets to the veterinarian. Um, it means that you might bring pets to the office with good rules about behavior
Hmm.
and certain set times. There are actually studies to show that companies that do this um, have more productivity. They're better able to attract and retain talent, um, and have people who are more engaged with their own company culture just because they're thinking about the pets.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think about what we've all experienced really going into the pandemic, and it's no longer a pandemic, but it feels like we're always in the state of disruption. So if you think about, and especially in the workplace and everything that's been going on in the last even month, I feel like there's always news around disruption in the workplace. So yes, we've lived through and all have learned through um, COVID, but then we've also and continue to live through civil and social unrest, economic uncertainty. Um, I'll continue to say civil and social unrest, which is then causing this agita in the workplace, right? So there's lots of news. I'm not going to throw any companies' names out there where there's a lot of there's a lot of misalignment, people not agreeing, protesting, etc. What companies stand for, and I think about how do companies create a thriving culture. And, when you talk about this aspect of just seeing people for who they are and thinking holistically about that person and that their family may just be their pets too, it it can help bring people together. I know that sounds kind of wild, but I think about when companies go down the path of how do we create policies so that people don't break our rules if you go out and protest versus to think holistically about what it means to thrive, and it is about focusing on the employee and how can they be at an equilibrium between their physical, emotional, social, and mental health. And I think pets have a way of doing that. And you had mentioned this to me earlier, and I think I posted this on LinkedIn. What's fascinating to me is, you know, having been a human resources professional my entire career, I think the problem always to solve is how do we accelerate the development of leaders so that they can bring the best out of their people? And I think that is a definition of creating a thriving workforce, creating a thriving culture. And teaching those skills are hard because you go through the class or the training, they may stick with it for a month or two, but then there's always like, here's the acronym or the framework that I use. You said this earlier about pets. And I think you said this earlier in our conversation that pets just have a natural way of evoking joy, right? And happiness with people and is kind of a catalyst for connecting people. And so,
That is absolutely
yeah,
true. In fact, there's a really great study that showed that when you're interacting, in this case, it was with your dog,
okay.
they were able to measure the brain chemistry of the people doing this, and they found an increase in oxytocin, increase in dopamine and serotonin. All the good brain chemicals were going up, and the cortisol, which is your stress hormones, were actually going down. And the very good news also is that the same thing was happening in the dog's brains. So that means, the
Interesting.
neurochemistry actually supports what you're saying. Pets do make us feel good. They help center us. Um, and that can be really helpful in a workplace context. You mentioned the pandemic. We were all spending a lot of time with our pets if we had the ability to work from home. And I think a lot of people, that was their saving grace, right? To be able to spend time with pets. So now we're working more hybrid. We're coming back to the office more. Um, it's a good time to really think about acknowledging that close relationship that we have with our pets, which only has become stronger. And that's a way of helping people bring their whole selves to the office and to their office culture.
Yeah, I love that too. And it's also a way of staying grounded, helping when managers can see their people fully for who they are, right? Including their family, which also includes their four-legged friends and family. Um, and asking people to come back hybrid, if that's the case, at least acknowledging that is a way, yeah, to have that
Yeah.
that mental balance, right? Of like, okay, my leader, the manager who supports me, actually understands that I also have a family that I take care of at home. And so how do I balance that?
If there
Yeah.
are any supervisors or CEOs watching, we did a workplace pets in the workplace study with Nationwide, and we showed a significantly greater affinity between employees and their supervisors in a pet friendly workplace.
So say more about that. Significantly
Um,
greater affinity.
right. So um, it's actually really interesting. It's a technique in social science where you have your circle and then you have the circle of the other person, and you
Okay.
drag the circles and you overlap them and you stop when you think, you've got your, depending on how close you feel towards that other person. And people had significantly more overlap and more affinity for their supervisors in pet friendly workplaces than not. And we think that's because, again, when companies acknowledge the pets, it really says something about who they are.
Yeah. I think that's such a great example of really showing care for your employees. And I always say this in a pretty basic way. It's like really fully seeing people, right? Seeing them, hearing them, feeling them in terms of like what's most important to them. And I love this too, this affinity for supervisors. It's kind of the law of attraction. I'll say this in a healthy way. People, if people perceive that you like them and then take it one step further, like them and acknowledge that pets are part of their life, then they're going to like you back. Right. So to me, it's kind of another way of thinking of the basic laws of attraction and affinity and how people will have the propensity to like someone if they perceive that the person that they're just meeting likes them too. So that's kind of cool.
Oh, yeah. There's one study that shows that more spontaneous collaboration across teams occurs when there are pets in the workplace. If you think about it, you people come and they're attracted to pets, and that starts conversations. And somebody might worry that that's kind of a time waster, right, in the office. But actually, what it
Right.
does is it connects people across teams. It fosters all that in-person collaboration that we've been, that CEOs really want to see in their companies. So pets can be a catalyst for productivity in really positive ways.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up. Pets can be a catalyst for productivity and a catalyst for spontaneous collaboration across teams. I at my last company, which was also based in Columbus, and as I would travel, and this was during the pandemic when not everyone was going to the office every day or in the same days, but I was in the office every day for the week that I was there. Every 6 weeks, and of course, Akira would travel. And because the office was still kind of somewhat empty, and I always post up in a conference room, and that's where we would work. But before we would even sit down to work, I always have a habit of walking around and seeing who's around, saying hi to everybody. And of course, Akira, and I'm pointing because she's like sitting right next to me right here, would walk around. And like one day, Akira wasn't with me in the office. And everyone's like, well, where is she? Right? So everyone's like, oh, Maurice is coming to the office. And they are just on alert, meaning in a good way, because they're waiting to actually talk to the dog. Not so much me, at least hopefully it was me too. But I hear you, right? And I think people, that was just a natural connector to actually talk to a leader who isn't in the office that often. I think it's a good kind of icebreaker. And now to think about it, I think about roundtables with new employees. We were hiring a lot of people at one point, and after they were in the company for a couple of months, I would always hold a roundtable, and people would freak out and go, "Well, why does the chief leader want to come in and meet with me? I'm new to the company. I've never had to meet with a CHRO." And it was really more about, hey, we want to hear what's on your mind. Let's talk about the values and purpose of the company. And what I found was by lifting up my phone and saying, hey, I'm Marisa. Here's what I'm all about. I talk about my family, including, my cats and my dog. I guess, would you be surprised to know that almost every time in every meeting, after I would like kick off and do the introduction, people would also talk about their pets, and then they'll be like, if I don't have a pet, here's my favorite pet of someone else's. So I love that. I'm just thinking about it in action, even when pets aren't physically there, the fact that we're talking about it.
This happens to me all the time, I guess, because, I tell people what I have the privilege of doing for a living. I get to do research on the health benefits of pets. And when I tell people this, they tell me a story about why it's true. They tell me a story about how their pet helped them or helped a relative. That people always can find those examples and they're excited to share them.
Yeah. I mean, I think whoever's listening right now, this is such a good nugget for, again, building skill around social and cognitive skills, which is so needed today. I think that's what employees are saying now. The workforce is saying that now with, okay, continuing evolution of technology, including Gen AI, right? And like, well, Gen AI is taking the humanity out of the work. Actually, it's requiring that we have more humanity in the work, right? Because I think companies, on one hand, are thinking, well, this is actually going to increase and accelerate productivity. But then the data shows, the research from McKinsey for specifically, is that people are like, I'm still going to quit 3 to 5 months from now, unless, and my manager and myself, I need to learn better social and cognitive skills to actually deal with people. It's my long way to getting to, if you just have this test of talking about your pets and like even the demeanor, right? When people talk about pets and their experience with them, that's automatically the skill one would say I'm experiencing that you have high, EQ or high social skills that you're able to do that. And so I don't know
Well,
what your thoughts are on that.
pets, there's an authenticity to pets. Studies with kids show that they have um, less screen time, more exercise, and better sleep. And that's certainly true of the adults with pets as well. So uh, I don't even know what the latest is on how much time people spend on their screens. But if you're getting out with your pets, um, you're and spending time interacting with your pets, and that includes, it's not just dog walking, that includes a cat in your lap. Um, those are our real experiences that make us happier and healthier. And if we can encourage that, then we'll have healthier uh, workforces.
Yeah, I totally agree. Oh my gosh. Yeah, and you're getting bringing it back to this loneliness epidemic. I think pets being pet conscious in with the contrast of technology taking over all the newest innovation and productivity at work, I think it'll help keep that equilibrium, right? Of just being human and being happy. That's pretty amazing.
And by the way, if you think about what we're scrolling, what's some of the best content? It's social media. It's pictures of our pets. right?
That's right.
It's still, the internet is still about cat videos, in my opinion, and that's the best part of it.
Yeah, I love it. And actually, you had some really cool commercials that you showed um, at the meeting we had last month in New York, which were pretty funny with both dogs and cats. And so I agree with you.
Well, people can see those at HABRI.org as well as learn about the science. But we did create some great videos to really talk about what this is all about, and I hope people will go take a look.
I love that. We will put that in the show notes, happy.org, and they can see the same videos. But since we're talking about New York, I wasn't joking when I said you were rolling and hanging out with your new BFF, Martha Stewart, right? We had the fortunate opportunity to chat with her at the end of the day, and I think you helped us kick off the day with your presentation. But for those who are really on that learning curve, there are a few people who are watching this who are like, I want to watch this as a primer of heading into my first summit for best pet workplaces. Based on your experience, like what was your takeaway from the experience? What did you learn? Who did you meet?
Well, first of all, who isn't a fan of Martha Stewart, but you'd be even more of a fan when you know how much she loves and cares for her pets.
Yeah,
Um, that was something that I wasn't surprised, but I was really happy to know that about her. Um, and I guess that was my big takeaway from the Best Pet Workplaces event in New York, was that everyone had a personal connection and experience with pets, whether it was a childhood pet or a pet that they have now, usually more than one pet. People have that strong connection. Um, and what I learned was that they don't always know what to do with that. And what I loved about the Best Pet Workplaces event was it gave us all practical ways to be pet
yeah,
conscious, and to bring that into our work. And I hope more people will figure out how to do that.
yeah. I love your take on that. Ditto agree with what you have said about Martha and experiencing um, her perspectives on the role that pets play in life and creating an amazing lifestyle. I agree with you on everyone having that personal connection to their own pet story, and then how do they take that a step further and bring it into the workplace. What I also loved from the day, and I think because people are already in this happy vibe, right? So high vibes, just good, well intentioned, compassionate human beings, because we're talking about pets. And I think it's just a certain demeanor too, just how people are with each other. You know, I I I experience like, wow, this is a really amazing group of people. And there are over 100 or so people there, but to feel that so close knit and people really wanting to make an effort and be intentional about how they connect with each other, I think that's unusual. It's unusual for a summit to come together and to have that vibe. Am I
Yeah,
thinking? Yeah.
these were all really high-powered, busy people in New York City, and the fact that they slowed down to and paid attention and really focused on pets of all things, speaks for itself.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm excited about folks who are joining us for the first time in a couple of days to also get that vibe. Now it's a different coast. It'll be that whole West Coast vibe equally. I think people who are passionate about creating thriving cultures and like curious about how do they bring the whole pet research, pet data into it. So if you were to give leaders who were and employees who are listening in or watching this, what are two or three key points that they should keep in mind if they want to build a case for being more pet friendly, pet forward, pet conscious in the workplace? What are two or three key points?
Sure. Well, I think if you're an employee and you're curious about this, I think you should remember that chances are your supervisor or your HR leader, um, they're probably pet lovers too, and that this is a conversation that's easy to have. And to ask about this is not scary. It's something
Okay.
that will probably bring you together. So that's kind of one point I would make. And then if you're a leader, if you're in a position to do something about this, I would say the science is there. It's going to be one of the happiest and easiest decisions you can make. Just find a way to get started. Make sure that pet insurance is part of your benefits plan. Make sure you have those roundtables and ask about pets. There's some easy things to do.
That's right. I agree with you. And I mean, pet insurance is a super easy thing, having been in human resources. Some companies offer them as a voluntary benefit, but the benefit to the employee is that it's a group discount, right, through their employer. And especially for the workforce, when I think I understand that the average veterinary bill for an event, I guess, is $1,000. And a lot of employees don't have $1,000 to pay for their pet. And it's this peace of mind. Again, I'm going back to this mutually beneficial relationship when we take care of our pets, right? And that anxiety that we might have if we can't. So I think that's an easy benefit that I think you point out. And
Oh,
even
yeah,
some companies
and also,
subsidize
by
it.
the way,
Yeah.
veterinary telehealth often comes with this. It can
Yeah.
be offered separately, but it's often part of the insurance offering. I mean, we've had, sort of ask a nurse lines for years, and now you can call if you just have a question about your pet's health. You can call in and speak to a veterinary technician or a veterinarian. So those are some easy things that can be offered just to show how much you care about the employees and their pets.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm really curious. I mean, with all the research that HABRI has done on the human animal bond, I'm curious if that research can turn into some kind of training or masterclass. I'm really riffing here on how to help leaders learn what they already know by expressing their emotion, through their pets and connecting with their pets, and how they apply that in terms of connecting the workforce. Because the outcomes, if we're at the end of the day, and I think I mentioned this last year, I think I was on the last panel, and yes, we are all here because it's happiness and joy. But at the end of the day, a lot of leaders, to your point, are very busy, took time out of their week to spend a full day to talk about this. And ultimately, they're responsible for driving business outcomes, right? Profitability, company growth, et cetera. And the unlock to that is looking for ways, which you've already used these words around the human animal bond, around increasing productivity, increasing collaboration, increasing connection, increasing engagement, you know, and that undertone is the happiness, but also just what it does for mental health for employees, emotional health, and physical health, actually, all of those areas. And then if you do that all well, that will impact your financial health because you're gainfully employed and contributing to a company.
I think we
So
just
tell me
found our
about
next
that.
collaboration. I would love to work on that with you.
Oh my gosh, let's fully do it. I mean, and if anyone else has ideas who's listening to this, yeah, dude, full on. We've got to figure that out.
Yeah, if we can more widely share how and why pets are good for us and how that translates in workplace culture, I
Yeah.
love the idea of a masterclass.
Yeah, I love that. I also love the idea of just if you're doing this naturally, meaning the authentic behavior that you demonstrate with the connection of your pet, how can you transfer that to how you connect with people? I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, I know that there's some people who probably think this is literally too warm and fuzzy of a topic for them, but I think we have the data to show it really pays off.
Yeah, I love it. And on your website too, can people see samples of your data and, the
Yes.
takeaways? Okay,
Yeah.
excellent.
Yes, and it's all footnoted. So if you want to dive into the scientific studies behind all that, it's there for you.
That's amazing. Now, you were cracking me up, literally warm and fuzzy. Yeah, warm and fuzzy in terms of animals and the topic. So I'm cracking up that you said that. Um, we've talked a lot about animals. We haven't talked about like the pets in your life. You've met Akira. I don't know that I've ever seen your pets.
Well, My old dog Scout passed away about 6
Oh,
months ago,
oh
but
my goodness. I
he
did
was
not know that.
14 and had a wonderful wonderful life, and so we're warming up to the next one. It's only a matter of time. I think reason we're taking our time is because my daughter has brought her cat home and from college, and I was always a dog person,
Yeah,
and now I am in love with Winnie the cat. So she's a little gray cat, and she's if I didn't have this door closed over here, she would be in here right now.
that would be so funny if she had jumped up. That would be excellent. I'm so sorry about Scott to Puppy Scout 6 months ago. I did not know that.
Well, pets. We often outlive our pets.
Yeah.
It's important to give them from for their whole lives, to give them the best care possible. And we certainly did that and had a wonderful time with him.
Well, I'm super curious, like, what is your favorite memory about Scout? And what did he teach you, in terms of being a better leader, for your family and for the organization that you lead? I'm curious.
Well, I mean, I guess it might seem cliche, but dogs especially teach us about loyalty.
Yeah.
Um, and I've learned. I think I really it dogs always reinforce two things for me. One is to be loyal to those around you, in particular your coworkers and employees. But the other is this, that our pets always see the best in us. And they always remind me to look for the best in others. It's easy to see flaws. It's easy to see what somebody might not be as good at as someone else. But I'm reminded always, I think, from him to look for people's strengths and look at the best in people.
Oh my gosh. I love that you said that. That you always look for the best in others because of your pet looking for the best in you. And I say it in a different way, but I love how human it is from a pet perspective, that the role of leaders is to inspire confidence in others, that you see them, hear them, believe in them, and believe, and inspire confidence in everything that a person is. Which is the same as seeing the best in others. And in doing so, when people feel like, wow, my manager really believes in me, they support me, that means they bring it all. And I always talk about this: good ideas, bad ideas. But the leader has a role of inspiring confidence and bringing the best out of people when they do that. So I love that you said that about what Scout taught you. And I'm sure what dogs teach other people, and how, I'm going to get corny, but whether or not our pet is here today or part of our memories, I mean, that will be with us forever, and good life lessons learned. So thank you for sharing that. That's
Oh,
amazing.
my pleasure.
I mean, always seeing the best in others is just such a great way. If I really boil it down, culture is really about building up people. And so that's a simple way of thinking about it. I love that.
Yeah,
Now,
well, that's what our pets do for us, and so if we can take that lesson, it's going to help everyone.
absolutely. Well, I want to get into a little bit more of pop culture, and it's okay if you bring in pets too. I always love to ask my guests, all right, what are you into these days in terms of, is there like a new favorite food or a restaurant? Is there something that you're watching, reading, listening to? A fashion tip if you want to share anything with pop culture in the world of Steven Feldman.
Well, first of all, I almost never watch anything before I go to I don't even know if the site is still up, but it used to be. Does the dog die.com? I won't watch anything if
Wait, what?
I won't watch a film if the dog dies.
Oh, okay. Oh my gosh.
So I won't. So that's always a bar for me.
Okay.
No harm to pets must come for me to consume a television or film program. So that's a rule that I always have. Um, Gosh, what am I doing right now? I am going old school. I have just started The Sopranos.
Oh, nice. That's not old school. I think that's OG. I mean, double OG. The fact that you're going through The Sopranos and doing that now is, I think it's still fresh. Like it's
Right.
still fresh and OG, and that is like the life of an OG. Just saying. Like,
Oh yeah, it's although it's amazing how plots are better pre-smartphone.
right? No, I agree. And I think, again, I'm not even going to throw any shade to any streaming channel right now, but all the programming that has popped up that is new, that was just kind of slapped together over the last couple of years. To your point, I agree with you. Like, there is just some really excellent stories out there pre smartphone. You're absolutely right. When it was appointment television,
There it
remember
is. Yeah.
that for those of us who were there back in the day, including me. Oh my God, Tony Soprano loved animals more than
Oh,
people.
that's right. The
Nice.
ducks.
That's nice, Mike Miller. Well, before we wrap, I know that you already talked about HABRI.org to get information on the research, to take a look at these fun videos that I had referenced. What is the best way to get a hold of you besides HABRI.org?
Well, here on LinkedIn, you can
Okay,
certainly
cool.
find us, and we always try and respond to comments or requests for information because we want to share that. It's part of our nonprofit mission is to not only do the research but to share it as widely as possible and hopefully make the world a better place for pets and people.
Well, I'm curious too, and maybe we can find more on your website. What can we be seeing, like the work that HABRI's doing, on the hill, so to speak, that will impact humans and pets? Anything we should be
Well,
watching out for?
well, we host Pet Week on Capitol Hill, and even if you're not in the Washington D.C. area, we do a whole week of virtual programming, really focused on policies related to a more pet-friendly society. So, some of the things that we've done that we're really proud of, for example, and we're still working on this, is there's actually now federal money, a federal grant program to help domestic violence shelters become
Wow.
pet-friendly. I mean, pets are so important to victims of trauma, and our research has shown this. People won't leave a dangerous situation, nor will they recover unless they
Yeah.
have their pets with them. So we got a federal grant program going to support domestic violence shelters to be pet friendly. We also got some federal money for the VA to support a service dog program, so that veterans with post traumatic stress can more easily get service dogs,
Wow.
and a lot of that was based on the research. We're really proud that we funded that research to show how beneficial service dogs are. So when we can follow the research and then actually achieve a policy, that's something that we're really proud of.
Oh my gosh, congratulations. And I think everyone is thanking you for, again, helping humanity and helping people thrive in their life. That's amazing. And then Pets on Capitol Hill, say more about that. So, how can people participate in that virtually and in real life?
Well, you can go to petnight.com,
Okay.
which is so we host that, and um, actually, the programming from last year is still on demand and available, but we'll be doing a whole new series of programs in early September and
Okay.
hosting a big event on Capitol Hill to really bring the power of pets to our lawmakers. And pets aren't even bipartisan; they're nonpartisan. Everybody loves them. You
Right.
talked about the divisions in our society. Pets bring everyone together, and we want to
Yeah.
bring that message as well as the science of the human animal bond so that we can help everyone benefit from pets in their lives.
That's amazing. So, we will also include that in the show notes. And what a way for people to get involved. I'm going to go check out the content from last year. And then, when is the actual week or date for Pets on Capitol Hill or
So the
Pet
week
Not
of
on Capitol
September 9th this year is going to be Pet Week, and
Hill?
then
Okay,
Pet Night on Capitol Hill for the folks on the Hill is going to be on the 11th of September.
excellent. All right, everyone, take note. I love this. And I'm going to end this with, first of all, thanking you and with a new mantra, which is always look for the best in people.
Just like
Right
your
on,
dog.
Stephen. Just like your dog. And with that, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you, Stephen, hopefully sooner than Pet Week and Pet Night on Capitol Hill.
I hope so.
Hopefully sooner than that. But then I look forward to seeing a few of you who are listening in a couple of days in Playa at the Wallace Annenberg Pet Space to join us all at this Collab Cultures Best Pet Workplaces Summit. I'll see you then. And then my next CultureCast, if you're around next week, is on Thursday with Elaine Lynn. And it's about finding your voice and unsilencing yourself. So it'll be really interesting for Mental Health Month. So with that, thank you so much, Stephen. I will see you very soon. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
I really enjoyed it.
Take
Thank you so
care.
much.